It's dark.
This meeting of the board is now called to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight, and we'll get started by approving our agenda. There's a motion, please, on page 3.
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as printed. Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, and we'll proceed with our agenda, and we'll start with public comment this evening. Hey, thank you very much. Our first speaker and only speaker tonight is Ruth Hook.
I'm going to pass on this because I misunderstood. I thought it was going to be directed to the candidate. So
Oh, okay.
I'll hold up.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you. With that, then, I believe we're ready to meet our candidate.
Welcome and introduce Mr. Matt Olson, Assistant Superintendent, Northwest Ed Service in Dr. Jarvis City.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Moore.
Nice to meet you, Mary.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Terry Noverio, welcome.
Hi, Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you. Matt Schneider, welcome to board. Thank you.
Kimberly Larson. Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you. Mark Stevenson. Nice to meet you, Mark. Minute, so consider yourself shaken.
Okay, Matt, I'd like to welcome you to Portage. We appreciate you being here. And I'd like to take just a minute to describe our format tonight. The interview will take up to 75 minutes. Board members will take turns asking questions. Toward the end, you'll be able to ask the board questions, and you'll have an opportunity to give a closing statement if you so choose.
Very good.
Choosing the next superintendent is a responsibility of critical importance for this board. We know that being the superintendent of a K-12 public school district is an enormous and unique job. We need to find the right person for this moment and the future to lead our district. We are ready and excited to learn as much as we can about you during this interview process, and the board has appreciated the input of staff and community in the process. And I just want to remind everybody, we held 8 focus groups. We had an online survey, and that helped us develop our profile for the candidate, the ideal candidate for Portage Public Schools. So let's get started. The first question. While we've had the opportunity to review your application, our audience has not. Would you briefly review your background and what causes you to be interested in this position at this point in your career?
Of course. Thank you so much. And thank you, board members. I appreciate the time that you're all putting into this and the efforts. And thank you for giving me the honor of being here this evening. And thanks to all of you for coming and taking the time to be here. You know, it's time and commitment, and it shows care for the district when people are here invested in the process. So I appreciate you all being here. In terms of who I am, I'll start with the basics. I am a husband and father of 3, and my wife you can always find her in the corner of the room. She tries. And she's actually there with my older brother. John came tonight to see the wonders of the democratic process in action because he's local. He lives right here in Kalamazoo. So in any case, we've been married, it'll be 25 years, July 1st, actually. And so we have 3 children who are not here because, you know, school, work, commitments, and so forth, a few hours away. But my oldest Dorian is actually, he's home now, but up until recently, he's a Western engineering student right up the road. So he's a Go Broncos, paying tuition there. I was in a room with a Spartan flag and Western emblem. That actually worked out really well for me. Thank you. Whoever that teacher is was after my own heart. My middle son, Griffin, is 17, and then my youngest, Cecilia, is 12. So we're still in the thick of the kids in school phase right now. In terms of my career, I'll just kind of walk through the basics. I'm in the family business. Both my parents were teachers turned educators, so I kind of followed in the footsteps, or teachers turned administrators, excuse me. I started my career as a teacher at Carmen Ainsworth High School, just outside Flint. I was a high school biology and physics teacher. Then found my way into administration in the middle school. Did not expect that. Kind of stayed away from middle school in the beginning, to be honest with you, until I got the opportunity, and then I stayed there for the next decade and love middle school. It's kind of where my heart is. So I spent 10 years as a building, I started as an assistant principal, athletic director, moved into principal, moved from Mount Morris Schools was my first assignment, got a chance to work in Holly Schools in northern Oakland County, was there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, this was during the lean years. If you've been around to remember 2010, things got a little rough. I was laid off, ended up landing in Lapeer Schools, where I was there for the next 6, was a principal, and then they moved me into a director of innovation role, new role to in the district, kind of a central office style role. And I got the bug to become a superintendent and felt like I wanted to go down that path. And that's how my path took me to the northern reaches and landed in Benzie County, just outside of Traverse City. So I was there for 4 amazing years, did some wonderful things in Benzie Central Schools, and was asked to apply for the leadership team at the Intermediate School District, Northwest Education Services, used to be referred to as Traverse Bay Area ISD. So I've been in the intermediate school world. We service 5 counties, 16 school districts, over 20,000 students. And my role has been kind of a unique one. I'm an assistant superintendent for professional learning and innovation. I have the coolest title in the organization, I like to say that. But my focus is around building and developing leaders. So I consult with superintendents, I work with superintendents, principals, and build leadership structures. So that's kind of my primary there. And I'm also a person that has to take glasses on and off. I've reached that stage in my life, so I apologize if I need to see occasional notes. In terms of why Portage specifically, there's way too much to get into in a very short period. I'll try to give you a few and then get into more as time goes on. But really, the first is, I would say, the work of being a superintendent is really important to me. It's really, it's something that I see as very important to education. And it's not my opinion, it's grounded in research. Quality leadership actually leads to improved student achievement directly. There's really good stuff out there on that. And so I believe very much in the impact, having a service mindset, and really immersing myself in the community. That's how I operated when I was superintendent at Benzie Central, and how I would want to operate coming here. And really, that's what drew me here, was your profile that you put out there. The alignment that I felt with the profile was really, really strong. You know, I want to be choosy about where I would potentially go. I want to make sure it's all about being a good fit. What you were looking for, experiences in different settings with different things, like, you know, making sure that someone has experience in curriculum, in assessment, experience with bond campaigns, experience with negotiations, experience with all manner of aspects of school operations. And I've really had a lot of benefit to having those things throughout my career. And to be able to work in a district of Portage's size, in a community that is very committed to its school district, I also believe very strongly in having my family part of it, so my children would be going here. And I want to be able to be in a place where I'm a father first, right? I want to make sure it's a place where I feel good about my own kids going. So family, fit, the region itself, I could go on about the region. I love the idea of being in a community that is on the upswing, and I really see that in Portage and Kalamazoo. To be honest, I did not spend a lot of time in this part of the state until the last few years when my brother relocated here, and his sons. His sons work for Zoetis, my grown nephews. So I've spent a lot of time. I was actually here last weekend. I saw a show at Miller, and before I knew that I was doing this. So I made 2 trips back and forth. I've been here. I was here 2 months ago for a game at Lawson. Got to see the national champion Western Broncos. It was phenomenal. So we've spent a lot of time here. The community is really exciting to be in this area with what's going on. So it confirms, it aligns, it feels like a really good fit, and I'm just really excited to be here. That's my why.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, I have the second question. So yes, welcome again. Matt, the first part's a little bit of a duplicate, what do you know about our school district? And can you tell us what you believe are the most immediate challenges we face and how you might address them?
So I know a lot for someone who doesn't live here and spend a lot of time here, but relative to someone who does, I would not come in here and say I know everything, of course, right? I mean, I've really tried to do my research whenever I come to a place that's really important. So with the caveat of, I have a lot to learn to really immerse myself in and have those conversations. There's a lot of things that I would want to delve into. There's definitely things that I've seen. I looked into your community survey that you have posted in your documents online. Some of the priorities of the community survey, of course, made sense for pretty much any school district. The top 3, as I recall, were teaching and learning, efficacy of instruction, and safety. Not really that shocking. I mean, that is what any parent, that's what I would want to see improved out of my schools. There's those things, and of course, and I've had conversations with some folks closer to the district who've, talked about, I know that there's, I believe in just speaking the truth. I know that there's a little elephant in the room of increased construction costs and the bond, right? I know that is a problem that needs to be worked through. That's a big issue. And Portage, the beautiful thing I think about Portage is, again, I've said it's growing, which is great, and that presents challenges, right? You have capacity issues, you have growth occurs in different areas of the school district that aren't always aligned with where current buildings are, and you get things like that. So there's challenges to growing, just as there's challenges to shrinking. So in terms of what I've heard, those are some things that I've heard. I'm sure there's others out there. I mean, those are maybe just the first couple I put out. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, could you describe your typical style of leading and talk about situations in which you might vary from that style?
So I appreciate the question. Thank you, Terry. I believe that there's actually a kind of if you'll forgive me, a textbook answer to this question. I think early on in my career, I would have described myself one way. Later on, I would have said, I'm a situational leader. And I think that still holds true. And I think that is, in my humble opinion, the right answer. Because there are times where different types of leadership are called for. You can't call a committee together when there's a bomb threat or a potential threat of violence, right? I mean, that's something where decisiveness is called for in the moment, and you're not able to exercise democratic leadership, right? You're making a decision to effectuate the safety of children. That's got to be immediate. Fortunately, that's not most of your decisions. I would say my default stance is one of collaboration and a more democratic style of leadership. I refer to this a lot, and I talk to my children about this quite a lot, especially my oldest, who's kind of working his way into adulthood now. Talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. That the more you know, the less you know. The more you actually learn, the more you realize you have much to learn. And I really approach leadership. I try to approach leadership with that humility. I've been doing this now. This is my 25th year in education, and I'll be starting my 10th year at the district level. And I have superintendents that I work with on a consult basis. They come to me in my region for advice and so apparently people see me with some level of expertise, which is really flattering. And the more I learn, the more I realize I have more to learn. And I think that's, again, I'm a student of leadership, and I think that's something to look for in leaders. So my leadership style, to go back to that original question, is what is called for in that space. And I think I've gotten better at discerning what's called for over my experience. But again, if I have a default, it's to use the expertise around me, because I recognize I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room about everything. I'm a generalist in a lot of ways, which is what the superintendent, I think, needs to be. To know something about everything, hold accountability to your people, but let your team, who has expertise, shine.
How would you go about evaluating the effectiveness of curriculum, assessments, and teaching methods within the district?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. So in terms of evaluating the effectiveness, there's multiple things to do. One of those is more of, I think, a process, where you're looking at assessment scores and data, and you're looking to see how students are doing, and there's critical importance to that. We have to have tangible results of what's going on. But the other side of that is, I believe very strongly in the idea of you've got to be in the classrooms. And I say that, I say you, I really mean we, and I mean the royal we. As a superintendent, my practice, and I didn't start this way, if I'm being honest, I had to figure this out over time. My practice was to go in every building every week. And grant you, I was in a smaller district. So, I mean, I had 5 buildings, okay? But I think it's important for the leaders in the central office to be present and to be not just present for the purpose of kind of shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, it's important to be present and visible, but it's important to also be there in a real and authentic way to be there with the work. I preach to the principals and superintendents that I support that there are 4 different ways that we support educators. Evaluation is only one of the 4. It's actually the least impactful on a teacher practice. There's also consultation, coaching, and collaboration, literally co-laboring and co-creating with people. And actually the most efficacious is coaching. And in coaching, I'm not bringing expertise to the table. I am using techniques to help the teacher bring out their expertise. Tom Izzo isn't the best basketball player at Michigan State, but he draws the best out of his players, right? That's coaching. I look at it the same way with education. And so that's a skill that I've worked on. I've got training in that, and I've really tried to hone it. And I believe very strongly in having my team trained in the same way so that they're doing it all the way across the levels. Principals are the most critical in this. I like to say principals are the leverage point at which the work happens. If we're going to get better, it's because principals are leading effectively, and that's where the strongest coaching can come from.
Thank you.
Tell us about a time that you disagreed with a stakeholder's view on an issue, but still showed empathy and understanding to come to a resolution that was workable.
Well, thank you for that, Kimberly. Stakeholders disagreeing on an issue. So, I mean, clearly people have disagreed with me over my career at various times. That of course happens. I think what I would use as an example is, so I'll lay something bare. When I was a principal, I was in middle school, as I said, but we taught literacy, of course, right? And we struggled with literacy instruction. And when I was a principal, we used actually, in most of my buildings, Lucy Calkins curriculum. And it wasn't until late in my career, actually after I left the principalship and was in the superintendency, that I was introduced to the science of reading research. And the Emily Hanford podcast on NPR, if anyone hasn't heard it, I highly recommend it, sold a story. And it was a shameful moment, honestly, for me. It was, oh my gosh, my career is, I was doing things wrong, right? And my building was doing things wrong. But you learn, and I've learned that there's still 75% of schools in the country that still are toying with this issue, or that haven't made the move over. But I had colleagues on the front end when I brought out this whole story who struggled. I recall multiple conversations with teachers who were being challenged in everything that they knew. They were trained in reading recovery. They were trained in the Lucy Calkins model and Fontes and Pinnell and the cueing system, and that it was right. And so having those conversations was really challenging, and it really involved a lot of, I understand this is hard, and set aside your bias and just look at the data, look at and recognize kind of what's going on. And it was hard, but I mean, in the end, it wasn't my opinion. It was clarity. So those conversations, I had multiple of those, I recall, were really hard, and there was disagreement. In the end, we had to come to the right decision, which was to do right by kids. So that's the only way we're going to move things up and get kids to be reading.
Okay, Matt, would you consider are the key practices needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship with the board?
Key practices to a good working relationship with the board. So I've had the privilege of working with multiple boards, right? And I've worked with superintendents on working with their boards. I've actually done some facilitation of board workshops around like superintendent board roles. I've facilitated superintendent evaluation for my colleagues in the region. I think a lot of the keys to that work are found in the model that you all have adopted in terms of the Carver model, the policy governance model. I will be honest with you, I had not had a name for it until fairly recently. Like I knew a lot of the aspects of the Carver model, and it aligned with the trainings that we have done. But I asked around a lot of colleagues, it's not nearly as well known across the state as what I think it should be, now that I've had some time to look into it. So I mean this sincerely. I'm not saying this, I know it'll feel like I'm saying this because I'm in an interview. But I don't know how to, I had an old mentor who said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. And I really am truthful when I say I think that this model is exciting, and it's part of what drew me to this. Because there's clarity in role and clarity in how you operate and how we operate. And so having that clarity, I think, is most important. And how you get to that can take multiple forms. I think it's good to have constant checkpoints. That's why I love the monitoring report system, and just having a constant flow of information between superintendent and board makes sense to me. Like I struggled with that with my previous board. Like it was, we would have like a session to talk about my evaluation at a quarter point, and they'd be like, yeah, you're doing great, Matt. Okay, give me a little more. And I think that when there's structures around it, and there's process and expectation, I think that clarity really helps, and I think that's the most important thing in relationships. So.
Thank you.
The next one. Please describe your understanding of a well-established special education continuum of services, and what would you do to ensure that such a continuum exists across all grade levels for both existing and emergent needs?
So having a continuum of supports and having there's the terminology that I hear most often, of course, is the MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of supports. And having a continuum of special education services is super critical. The more of a continuous continuum, I'm sorry, that's horrible, but I can't think of a better way to say it, the better, because that way your kids are getting more individualized supports. When I see broken, kind of continuum of supports, when you have gaps, for instance, I'll use cognitive impairments. If you've got a moderate cognitive impairment room and resource room, no mild cognitive impairment space. Invariably, you get kids that are not MOCI in the moderate cognitive space, where a lot of these kids may be nonverbal. They may be, oftentimes they're multiply impaired. There's other issues. A lot of MOCI kids may also be on the autism spectrum, things along those lines. And then in the resource room, so what do you do with a kid? The resource room is now in gen ed instruction, with maybe they're going out and doing a lot more mainstreaming. If you've got a child who's maybe somewhere in that middle gap, they fall into that kind of donut hole, and you don't have a MICI space, you're invariably going to either push them into a space that's going to be a struggle, or you're going to push them into a space that's going to be a struggle. And you kind of end up choosing between which one is going to struggle the least. That's one of the advantages, I think, of having a larger system and having more resources, is that you can provide more of those spaces because you have a critical mass to do those things. So I want to make sure can you repeat the question to make sure I got that?
You pretty much got it. You got it.
Yeah, thank you. I felt like there was another aspect of it. Thank you, Mark.
Matt, how can you ensure that your values align with the overall values of our schools and community?
So, I really, in terms of making sure, I think it's really having that open, honest dialogue. That's part of why I really think it's important to do the homework, right? And to have conversations with people. And I've been fortunate to have several of those that I think have led me. Of course, obviously, I've had conversations with Andy. I had a great extended conversation with Mark. I've met Mark prior to this several times. Really respect Mark, just a wonderful guy, very highly respected in the superintendent community, and had a great, very open, honest conversation with him. I even had one with Pat McKinnon, I believe is his name, the city manager, Portage. Just ended up, had a really, really great conversation with the guy. Really interested in partnering and collaborating. Just it was exciting. But all of those, I'm trying to get a feel for that, exactly that. Like it's, is this a place where I feel, comfortable and aligned? And I think there's clarity that very much I do. I think it's important to recognize, especially today, I mean, we live in a very, it's a tough moment in society right now with polarization, with everything is politics, everything is challenging. And schools are sometimes becoming fodder for that, getting caught in the crossfire. And, regardless of what beliefs there are, my belief is that if we're working with and around kids, we can get past just about anything else. I worked with a board in Benzie that I won't say probably, I'll just be honest, we disagreed on a lot of things, like outside of school, and that didn't matter. Like, we were aligned on what we were trying to do for the district, period. And that made things work. And I count those board members still as many of my friends. I have a letter of recommendation that you'll see is from one of them. And we may disagree on a lot of things, but we absolutely agreed on the school system and what we're going to do. And that's what matters. That value is clear.
Matt, how do you communicate your expectations to employees? How do you deal with employees who do not speak your expectations? Let me repeat that. How do you deal with employees who do not meet your expectations? And provide an example.
Sure. So communicating expectations, I think, communication can always be improved. I've done a lot of strategic plans. I've yet to have one that did not list communication as an area of improvement. Seriously, like it happens every time. I always feel bad for communication coordinators because they tend to get beat up in those. And so we can always do better, but I really try to communicate expectations first and foremost through modeling. And then, I try to live as I'm asking. It's kind of they do as I say and as I do. Okay, not do as I say, not what I do. So consistency in what I put out there. And of course, having good quality procedures and making sure that there's good documentation around, things like there's an expectation that employees do bloodborne pathogens training every year, right? It's one of our favorite things. So when we do bloodborne pathogens training, there needs to be some sort of a system of accountability to make sure that at the end of watching the engaging videos online that we check that we sign off. Do we have those here? I figured we do. Okay, good. All right. Don't want anyone getting bloodborne pathogens, so thankfully we're all trained. When an employee does not meet expectations, again, I really try to live by the mantra of clear is kind, right? It really involves speaking honest, speaking truth to this is what's happening, and having sometimes a difficult conversation, and being willing to step aside or step next to that employee and support them first. I'm not a person, as you get to know me, and I hope you get the chance to, better than just in this space here. I'm a person who's pretty authentic and a person who's pretty approachable, and most I think would say is pretty nice. I had criticism of that early in my career because people thought it was so nice that I wasn't holding people accountable. But at the end of the day, I did. It was just because I was nice, people thought I wasn't. But I had a teacher in my middle school in Lapeer. Great example. It was a person who just she was not good with kids. She did not like kids. She liked some kids. And I'm not trying to be flippant or rude, just she truly was not kind. And she was going through things in her life that were, as they usually are when they're in that space. And so I tried to approach it from a space of help. It's like, I know you're going through things, how can we get this right? Because at the end of the day, I still need you to show up for these children in the classroom. And we worked, we put together plans, we did all of the things. I worked with the union, I did all of those things, and didn't get better. And she was a tenured teacher. This was, so it was gonna be hard, and we didn't stop because it went hard. I went to go, the day before literally we took her to the tenure commission, she resigned. But I was going to go to the tenure commission. We were ready to go. Paperwork was done, and it took time, and it was painful, and it was arduous, but we did it because it was the right thing to do. But that's not what we started with. We started with, how can we help? So accountability is just really about being clear, being kind, but in the end, being real. Thank you.
Matt, we have a large administrative team. How do you learn what their individual and collective strengths are, along with areas for development? And how do you coach them so that they are even more effective leaders 1 year from the day they are hired?
Thank you for that question, Judy. This is my passion. Like I said earlier, supporting leaders, I think, is really where I have a lot of passions, but that is definitely high on the list. Because I think that when we make leaders stronger, teachers feel better about working for leaders that are stronger, and then kids feel better being in classrooms with teachers that are more efficacious. I mean, it has to start there. In terms of the how, I lean into training. I've done a lot of training. Like I said, I'm a student of leadership. I don't think I'm done. I don't think I'll ever be done. But I have several things that I lean into. One of those is, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm cognitive coaching trained. And cognitive coaching is more than just a coaching process. It's really an understanding of how people are best supported. And there's tools and techniques. I took them out of my folder because this was official. I carry around with me in this at all times conversation placards that show prompts for reflecting and planning conversations. And they're designed, I have people use them with me, and I use them with my people to really reflect on where things were and how are we going to go from there. So it's a process, it's a trained technique. Likewise, I'm a student of communication. I'm trained in a process called the PCM, or Process Communication Model. It's a little less well known in our state, but it's become a big thing in our area. It basically, long and short of it is, it talks about how humans best communicate, and it's on the surface it almost looks like one of those personality profiles like True Colors or something like that, but it's much deeper than that. It's about when people are in distress, how do they communicate differently? How do you help pull people out of distress? And when they're out of distress, how can you meet them in their communication space? It's a terrible definition, of a very complex process, but my point is that I've really tried to work on techniques to help effectuate that work. But you probably wouldn't know it talking to me, because it's not like a robotic process. It's just kind of how I operate and who I am. My wife will probably tell you I've cognitively coached her. It can be a little irritating because I tell her I'm doing it. I'm like, hey, this is something I learned in cognitive coaching. It's really cool. It's going to be great. She loves it. But it truly is powerful. It's powerful work. So that, and again, I think the most important thing, though, is just being present. And I found that takes time. A lot of time. When the superintendent starts showing up in Benzie Central for the first time in classrooms, it freaks people out. And I really hope I get this chance, and if I do, I'm going to apologize in advance, because I know it will probably create some anxiety if it's not something. Maybe people are used to it. I hope they are. But if they're not, but I promise people, like I said, evaluation is one of 4 of the ways to work together, and that is not the one I'm doing. That's not the point. It's really about being present, being helpful, I'm a support staff member. The instructional staff are the ones doing all the work. I'm support. That's what I'm here to do.
Matt, can you describe your experience with budget development, financial management, and oversight, inclusive of bond funds?
Yes, thank you. My experience in budgeting is pretty wide. So I've done everything from the principal, discretionary budget, which is relatively small, right? Obviously, you're working with, tens of thousands of dollars or maybe thousands of dollars if you're in a particularly small building. And then I've done the superintendent budget at Benzie Central. We ran about a $15 million budget when I was there at that time, and up to North Ed. North Ed is very on par with Portage. North Ed was about $115 million, $110 million thereabouts, and I know Portage is about $125. My experience with budget development is, full disclosure, I'm not an accountant and I don't pretend to be. I don't have that level of expertise, okay? But that's not, in my experience, the role. The role is really about the high-level budget development and understanding not only the budget development process itself, but all the processes that are going on in the background to get there. So the budget manager, the superintendent, has to be plugged into the state, to the politics of the state and the process of the governor's budget, the Senate budget, the House budget, reconciliation, the CREC conference, which is happening Friday, 2 days from now. We are waiting with great interest to be sure that we're understanding this is going to be a really interesting budget development year because we're not going to have a state budget prior to us developing our budget. I will be shocked if we have one by June 30th at this point. So when that's the case, you have to make decisions, and that's where I think I have to come in to say, how are we setting up this budget? Are we setting this up ultra-conservative, mid-level conservative? I don't think I've ever set up a flaming liberal budget because that's not like good management. You have to be careful and go on clear assumptions, right? Like you've got to be mindful because we've got to take good care of the taxpayer dollar. I know that's one of the pillars here, right? That's one of our 4 pillars is good stewardship of resources. So my experiences are pretty wide and broad that way from process itself. How do we build those budgets? And oftentimes, like if we're in a place where we have to make hard decisions, what's that like? I had to do that at Benzie Central. When I got there, it was we had a assumed fund balance at the end of the year of just under, I think it was 7.something%, 7.5 thereabouts. I got in there. I also had a brand new budget manager. The superintendent and budget manager left at the same time. Good humans. I'm not knocking them, and there was nothing bad, but budget was driven into a brick wall. We literally had to stop spending in October, discretionary. And we ended the year, my first year, we missed 5%, which is the cutoff for state intervention, by $17,000 on a $15 million budget. It was very, very tight. So I had to take very drastic steps that year. We had to do a series of community conversations. We had 4 elementaries and 1,500 kids. I grew up in a school district of 4,200 and we had 4 elementaries. I'm like, this is not, we can't do this. Like we have to cut overhead. The money needs to go to kids, not buildings at that point. Like we had to make some very hard decisions. So I had to close a school in my first year. And I made the recommendation to close the school. The board made the final decision, but I had to make that recommendation. We didn't do it quickly. I mean, we had to do the community steps, but it had to be on a faster timeline than I would have liked. That is not the thing I anticipated doing my first year. But we did, and we also passed the sinking fund for the first time. The district had no sinking fund. So between those 2 things and really working on our budget, at the end of my 4-year tenure, we were pushing 20%. And so we got ourselves to where we needed to be, actually further than I anticipated. I was hoping for like 13 to 14, but I had a really good financial manager who was very conservative. So, yeah. Is that helpful? Mm-hmm. Okay. Make sure
Thank you. Would you please describe your experience with the board policy governance model?
So, like I said, my experience directly with the model is limited. I've been poring over it quite a bit in preparation for this and looking at your monitoring reports and looking at, you know, the ends reports, the end goals, and the oh my gosh, the executive limitations. Sorry, I didn't remember the terminology here. I'm trying to be a quick study. And like I said earlier, I think philosophically, we were using aspects of the policy governance model at Benzie Central. We really were focused on trying to ensure that board roles and executive roles were clear, that we had our planning and our goals were aligned, and that, but I mean, it was not, just truthfully, it was not nearly to the level that it's been, that I've seen it here. I grabbed one of those and printed out in preparation for today. And so, you know, the monitoring reports that we had for each one, this is just the, sorry, I gotta do the glasses thing again. This is just the global lens monitoring report that you did this last year. And so we did not have this for each global lens report. So, but I'm a quick study, and I look forward to, I would love to get some formal training in this sooner rather than later, so that I can get up to speed with you all and be ready to rock with it. Like I said, this was actually a draw. I think that this is an exciting way to operate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How have you dealt with curriculum issues that arose that current culture considers to be controversial? And describe how you were able to resolve those issues.
So, the best and most important thing I think we need to do in this space right now that we're living in, do a lot of listening, right? And what I found in terms of resolution, most people that are coming to us, to me, in the spaces where I work now, both at the ISD and when I was superintendent at Benzie Central, even when I was a principal, most people, when they come in hot, that's usually where it gets scary, right? Someone's coming in hot with, I have an issue and I'm going to bang on the table and I'm mad and I'm going to tell you. They want to be heard. At the end of the day, they want to be heard. And oftentimes, when we get through that initial kind of, this is what I'm frustrated with, or this is what I'm concerned about, this is what I'm just flat out mad about. We pause, I paraphrase back what they said, and then I ask, how can I help you? What are you looking for? And oftentimes, there's an awkward pause. Like, I'm not sure. I just wanted you to know. And oftentimes that is a place where you can get resolution just because you're engaging in conversation. Now, beyond that, of course, there are times when that doesn't fix it. And when that's the case, I think it's really important for us to have clear policy, right? Clear policy, clear procedures, which I've looked, I've seen, we have. Our curriculum procedures are nicely put out. You've got a beautiful set of bylaws around the curriculum committee. You have a process. And ultimately, you follow the process and make sure that it's done with fidelity, that it's done fairly, and that at the end of the day, we're standing clear. This is where I think it's so critical for a school district to have clear values, clear mission, clear vision that's developed with the community in a strategic planning process. Because that way, when it comes down to that question and someone's saying, why are you doing this? This is consistent with our values. And they're not my values, they're our values, because they came from the community. So it's really, that's being a community-based school district where you're engaging in that space. I mean, it won't make everyone happy all the time, but the answers are fair and the process is clear. And then we can move on and do what we need to do and put our energy into educating kids.
How specifically would you go about establishing and maintaining positive public relations with our community and building on that?
So, there's a lot. I appreciate the question. Maintaining community relations, a lot of it is presence. I already got an invitation to and a sponsor for joining Rotary. That was Pat. He was very excited to be, and I'm actually a Rotarian from when I was up north, so I was excited about that. And I say that as an example. just because that's a great way to get out and meet a lot of people, and then those people will help you meet other people. Those people will help you meet other people, and that's the way that you get out there. But I really think that forming relationships is the key, and it takes getting out there. I don't know if you're picking up on it, but I'm a pretty gregarious soul. This is kind of how I operate. I'm a very person-oriented person. I like humans, even ones like me, like different than me, all around the bend. I've worked in a lot of settings. Harmon Ainsworth is on the outskirts of Flint. It's one of the most diverse districts in the state. Worked there for 5 amazing years. Went from there into like northern Oakland County, went from there into rural Thumb, went from there into northwest lower Traverse City and rural Benzie County, and now I hope to come to the Kalamazoo County and Portage. They're all different, but all similar. And, you know, I can draw on a lot of those spaces and a lot of those things. I think that I'll have good success hitting the ground running and getting out there and forming those relationships and being part of the community. It's really important. It's part of the reason why, like I said, when I hope we have the chance to move, I would not move anywhere but inside the district, and assuming I can find a house. That can be interesting these days. But we did that when we moved to Benzie Central. We moved into the district for a reason. I will say there's downsides to it. You can feel like you're in a fishbowl sometimes. Going to the grocery store takes a minimum of an hour. As people stop and talk to you. But I think it's the best way to be successful. Like it was when I was going to see my kids, I was part of the district. Like it all was kind of worked out beautifully that way. It's a family gig, a family affair. So they're used to it, and they appreciated it, especially on snow days. They were heroes, unless I didn't call them, in which case they were like blind inches. So got a little bit of that sometimes, but.
Matt, please share with us the strategies you use to ensure staff members feel valued and appreciated.
So strategies I've used, I appreciate the question, Randy. Like, I read recently, or wasn't, I'm sorry, this was a podcast. I listened to a podcast recently where they talked about like climate and culture. It was a group of HR professionals that does this podcast, and they talked about the folly of recognition systems. And, you know, the kind of the takeaway, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was, don't stop doing recognition systems. Like, don't do that. Like, it's not that they're bad. But if you expect, like, recognition systems, like Teacher of the Month and that kind of thing, to, like, be the way that recognition happens, that it's not going to do it. Like, it's authentic recognition comes from authentic human interaction. Authentic feeling good about the organization comes from authentic human interaction. That's part of why I put such a premium on being out and about and visible. I will tell you, it drove my secretary nuts at Benzie Central. My predecessor was not as much in that realm. And so, like, having the superintendent not in the office all the time was very distressing to her. But it's the only way I know how to do the work. And I do believe it's the right way to do the work, because those interactions, I have a million chances to say, hi, how's it going? It's good to meet you. Like, I'm meeting you for the first time. I love what you've got going on in your classroom. That's really cool. Going to the secretary and just having that brief interaction, like, oh, I see you got 3 kids back in the sick office. May the odds be ever in your favor. You know, there's those little quirky, fun interactions go so much further than, like, me formally, like, presenting a certificate once a month. You know, those are also important, and those are, you know, I definitely don't want to, like, not do things that we're already doing well. But I think that that's recognition in the space, which is part of the reason why, again, training leaders to also do the same thing. It's not just me. I can't be a hero in a district of 8,700 kids everywhere. Like, I can't be everywhere all at once, and I don't want you to think that that's my expectation. But I'd model it with the expectation that we operate in that. But that's what we aspire to. we're out there constantly. Got to do paperwork once in a while. That is important too. But being present is how you impact the classroom.
Thank you.
And Matt, Portage has the full range of students, including both low and high achieving, low and high socioeconomic status, and a wide range of life goals, and there are other ways you could cut it. We really are a diverse school district.
Absolutely.
How will you ensure that each student's needs are met in our classrooms and beyond?
That is the question for public education, and I so appreciate it. That is what inspires me to. So this is my 25th year in education. I do not want to walk away from this profession without making a heavy dent in exactly what you just described. I'll give you the example from my own home. So I have 3 children, as I mentioned earlier. My oldest son, Dorian, did the path that was kind of expected of him. He was salutatorian of his class, super proud of him, amazing young man. Went out, did his 13th year in an early middle college program that we started when I was there. It was one of my babies. I wanted kids to have that opportunity in my district, not just at the ISD. And went off to Western and is now killing it. I won't say killing it. He struggled a little bit in Calc 3, like who wouldn't? Better man than me. But he did that kind of. I have 3 college degrees. I'm not saying that from a braggadocious way, but I'm a college-going person. Desiree got her degree. We met in college. We met in chemistry lab. We had chemistry from the beginning. It's a great joke. These are the jokes. I'm also a dad. I've got dad jokes. I apologize. So he followed the traditional path. My middle son, Griffin, also a good student, not salutatorian, but an excellent student, right? And just an amazing good kid. He is currently enrolled in the aviation maintenance program at our Career Tech Center and loves it, killing it. And I will never forget his sophomore year, we were having dinner at Vita Bella in Frankfurt. We're sitting down and Griffin kind of sheepishly says to me, "Dad, we went on a tour and I think I might be interested in the aviation maintenance program." I was like, "That's great." And you could literally see him go, "Oh, like, that's great, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I thought you'd be mad." I'm like, "Oh God." No, I'm not. But what it told me though was that we buy into very much a college, everyone goes to college culture. And it was present in our household and I didn't even realize it. Like I'm a educational leader who should know, like I thought I'd been making all the right projections and even in my own house. We had to kind of get over that hump. And both are correct, right? There isn't one right and one wrong way. And so that's a very long way of getting back to having systems where kids can know what all those options are and that we can present those in a way that all are valid. Like frankly, my aviation maintenance kid is probably going to out-earn my engineer kid on the front end of his career. I'm saying that very sincerely. Like it's a great field. And as long as he's happy, I said, don't just chase money. You got to do it because it's what you want to do. But that requires a rethinking of culture sometimes and how we approach giving kids options and making sure that our school systems are set up in such a way that we can support kids all the way through regardless of their path so that they can achieve those ends and have that better life. That's a big lift, and it doesn't always fit neatly into a 6 or 7 period high school day. And sometimes challenging some of those norms is really hard and important work. And it doesn't mean, please don't take away from this, Matt's going to come in and tear everything apart. That's not how I operate. Like I said, I want to come in and listen, but I also want to have conversations about how can we do better by our kids? How can we shift our thinking so that every child that goes through the school system has a true educational guarantee? It can be done. Steubenville, Ohio, every single kid is proficient in reading by the end of elementary. and it is a much poorer district than any other place that we serve. It's possible. There are places that do it. How can we do it? How can we tweak? How can we change?
Matt, please give us examples of educational change or reform that you've initiated that improve success for all students.
So, thank you for that question. In terms of educational reform, there's, oh boy, where to start here? Like I said, I think one of the more profound ones has been rethinking literacy instruction. You know, at Benzie Central, we had a series of disconnected curricula that were not great, right? It was, and like I said, I still hold on to that shame of like early in my career before we knew better, right? But we made a switch to core knowledge language arts, CKLA, and we did it region-wide. We did it, this was with the help of our intermediate school district. We did it in partnership with them. And it wasn't easy. And frankly, if I were to go back and do it again, I would do it differently, and I think I would do it better. Our rollout was too fast, and it didn't do nearly enough investment on the part of staff. And I regret that. Like, so we had more pushback than I think we would have if we would have had a better rollout. I learned from that rollout, bluntly. And the results are better. It's slow. One of the things I've really come to learn is I'm hesitant to jump right to kids' scores didn't go up, therefore it wasn't successful. Because frankly, student scores are very much a lagging indicator. You have to measure success differently than just did the M-step go up by 3 points or not. I think the measurement of success has to go down to how are teacher behaviors changing, how are teacher practices changing. And again, you can do that, you can measure that if you're present, right? That's, again, part of the reason why I think that is so important. So looking at school culture and looking at how practices are shifting, looking at how kids are doing on interim formative assessments, having really strong formative assessment systems is really important, and moving things along in that way. So that one example of literacy, but I mean, I could go on, but I want to make sure I'm budgeting my time. I'm looking for that just to make sure I'm on track.
What has been the most unpopular administrative decision that you've had to make? And how did you handle the reaction to that decision?
So, undoubtedly, for me, it was closing a school. And it was, I mean, we're emotional creatures, right? I mean, we're driven by data, but we're also driven by stories. And I think, frankly, we're driven more by stories most times, most people. And that was a really challenging time. I will carry with me those town hall meetings to my grave. Like, they were intense. And there were people that had very hard feedback, and it was a matter of taking it and pulling it all into perspective, and in the end, making an unpopular decision. And I often, say a little flippantly, like, I still get side-eye when I walk down the streets of Honor. Honor is a small village that had the village school, and that was the one that was the oldest and the worst shape. And when you looked at our demographics and where the lines were, that was the one that made the most sense. And it was hard. But the way I handled the reaction to it was with patience, kindness, and unrelenting data, which doesn't overcome emotion, but at least it leaves them with, there was a reason, right? This is why we have to go down here. This is what we're doing, and it's for the kids. I really try to always make decisions with children in mind, because it's the right thing to do, and because in the end, when we need to defend one, and I need to defend one, I can always go back to that, and it's very hard to argue with that. You know, if someone's like, how dare you do this? Because this is what's going to best serve our kids. I can sleep at night with that and move on with life as best as I can.
Thank you.
You've addressed this some, but in your current position, how much time do you spend in the schools, in the classrooms, and in the community? How do you do this, and what value has this been to you?
So, I would answer, I think it'll probably be a little more meaningful if I answer it from the perspective of Benzie Central. Would that be okay? So when I was superintendent in the district, in my role as a superintendent of support, and it's a little different, but as superintendent of the district, the way that I did it, like I think I mentioned to you earlier that I spent at least an hour or so in each building every week, okay? And I had a system for it. My administrative assistant helped me, watched my calendar and made sure I live and die by my calendar. If it is not on my calendar, it does not exist. If it is on my calendar, I know I'll get it done. So it looks a little cluttered sometimes because it's very, very full, but that's how I kind of organize my time. But if it's on the calendar, it happens. So I just schedule recurring. I'm going to be at this school on this date, this school at this date at this time. I try to be judicious with it. I try to go so I'm minimizing drive time and do all those things. But when I went to the schools, I also had a plan there. And it typically would be, I would walk in and I would meet with the principal, check in the office, and then we would have some sort of a cadence as to what we were doing. Sometimes we just sat down and had reflective conversation in the office. Most times we would have reflective brief, and then we would go out and visit classrooms. And there's all sorts of protocols you can employ. Like sometimes we'd use you walk by a classroom and flip a coin. Heads, you walk in, tails, you don't. Literally can be that simple and that random. Just if you're trying to collect data and just trying to walk around and see what happens. That way you don't always go into your favorite classroom every time or avoid the not favorite classroom. And because that's not the point. We're just here, this isn't for judgment. I'm not here to evaluate. There's 4 ways. This is only one. So it takes time to get there, but that's how we would do it. It's on the calendar, we get there, and we make it happen. I would say on average, I really strived to get, I tried to get 50% of my time out of the office. I'm not going to sit here and say that I was perfect at that. That was my goal. But I've heard some people say that they go for 80. I don't know how they do that and still operate the district. But that's my goal. And I mean, there's other things you're doing besides just walking out of the classroom. You're going out into the community in other ways. I mean, it's trying to make sure I'm out and about at least close to the majority of the time.
Matt, excuse me. There are many roles and responsibilities within the superintendent job. Fiscal responsibility, board relations, community relations, staff relations, and the list goes on.
Indeed.
How do you do all of this while still taking care of the academic side of the house to ensure we are maximizing student growth and achievement?
With the help of an amazing team. I mean, and I say that very sincerely. I can't, do all of those things. It's funny. The kids in Benzie had a nickname for me. There were 2 Matt Olsons in Benzie Central. There's 2 Matt Olsons certified to teach in the state of Michigan, and we both worked in Benzie Central. It's crazy. He taught high school English, and I was the superintendent. So they had to give us different names. So they called the other Matt Olson, who'd been there a long time, the OG Matt. He was the OG, and I was Super Matt. And so, I had the nickname, but I am obviously not superhuman. It was Super Matt because I was superintendent, nothing more. And it's really about doing all those things. I depend, especially in a district of this size, you depend on a team. I would have to depend on a team. And by all reports, that doesn't seem like it's going to be a big issue. I'm really excited actually to work with the team based on just reputation alone. Yeah, that's what it takes.
Thank you.
Formative and summative assessments are significant pieces of data. How would you go about growing student achievement in our district?
growing student achievement through summative and formative assessment. I really, I will say, I think there is more value in formative, although it's easier to read summative. But growing student achievement in the district is about shifting practice and doing those things that we know. There's actually there's clear research on things that can grow student achievement. I always love to go to John Hattie's research. Hattie talks about there's very few things we do in schools that actually harm children. Standing in front of kids and lecturing for 55 minutes straight has a positive impact. Not a very high positive impact, but it has. You're not harming children. Like, you're not like causing them trauma. It can be boring, but you actually are imparting some knowledge. It is far less effective than student-centered, like discovery-based education, project-based learning, things that are asking them driving questions and having them do research and having them build things. Like, I'm a science person, so like having an active science classroom is important to me. And so you can shift classroom practice in order to make it a more student-centric classroom, and that's ultimately how you build student achievement. You can't know you're doing it without assessing, and that's where I think formative assessment comes in, and those are the things that are happening on the fly. And ultimately, those summative assessments are the things that give you the long-term view of, did we make the difference? Did the M-STEP scores move? Did the NWEA scores or the iReady scores move? So those are important, but the day-to-day work is where it changes, and it's hard. We've got a lot of education has looked mostly the same since Horace Mann developed this model in the late 1800s. Just, that's a truism that is, I think, present, and until we really challenge that, it's going to be hard. If you look at student achievement over time in the United States, it's a flat line. It's not moved much. It's not bad. I mean, we're doing, like, people think that it was a lot better, like in the 50s. It's really not changed that dramatically. But if we're going to change it, it's going to take something that looks different. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Do you have any questions for us?
So we're doing okay on time. We are. I would love to just, one of the things that is helpful for me, if any of the members of the board wouldn't mind, I would love to hear about things that you're excited about and proud about of the school, like things that, just feedback that you have that you think is, your point of pride, if you would. I've read the district points of pride, but I'd be curious to hear your personal perspective. Anyone that would mind sharing.
One of the things we're proud of right now is that we're opening 2 new elementary schools. And, those will be kids in those buildings in the fall. And these are facilities that are game-changing in terms of the support they provide for learning. It's not a long hallway with doors anymore.
Yeah.
And we're breaking ground on our 3rd elementary school, and it's really exciting because these are world-class buildings. And to go along with that, it's the support of the community to make that all possible. So we're very lucky to live in a community that is so supportive of education.
Absolutely. I saw the floor plans. They're exciting. Just looking at how it looks, I appreciate that. It's not hallways with doors. It's really cool looking.
I would add that many years ago, my wife and I moved here specifically for the schools, and our kids were pre-K at that point, and they went through everything. And it was a great experience, and we wouldn't change a thing. And if we were young at this point, we'd do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Bill. Appreciate that.
I'm a teacher myself. I have an autism classroom, and not in Portage, but for me, seeing the variety of options that Portage has available for students in order for them to succeed is a huge draw. It helps that my children are third generation Portage students or graduates, but seeing the progression of what we have here and what we offer for me, it was a very easy decision to move back to the Portage Public Schools when I moved back into the area and knew that my children would be living here.
Thank you for that.
We've had a world-class IB program for about 25 years now, and I think that's a feather in the cap of our district too. We were one of the first in the public schools in the state to offer IB, and we see continued growth every year in the number of students taking IB classes, as well as the students going for the IB diploma. And that has not only furthered the depth of their education, but also afforded them college credits that were money-saving going forward. So that's something that we're really very proud of.
Those opportunities are so critical, especially now with the cost of higher education. Doing what is anything that we can do to bolster that is so critical. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Terry.
I'm going to go into what you're being serenaded by right now, which is this tremendous musical program and the arts programs we have here in the district. Not only just the musical arts, but even all of the different varieties of media that we have.
Yes.
We have a tremendously talented staff and students.
As a musician and theater arts kid of myself and my wife and my children, that's a big deal. Thank you.
I would add that I know you've read how well qualified our faculty are and our teaching staff and our paraprofessionals and everyone who works in our buildings, but one thing that I hear is how much they care for each other. And the culture in the buildings is one of family among the staff. And when times are tough, like they are now, they rely on each other and they pull each other through. And they know that they can go to their colleagues or their friends and their neighbors, and have the support that they need if it's something with their family or their health or whatever's going on.
And there's that small town care. Despite it's a big district, but not a big district feel. That's the sense I got. Yeah.
And I would double down on the community aspect. I grew up here, went to school here, graduated. My wife graduated. We came back, same reasons as Bo. This was a no-brainer for us, and it was because of the school, the education, and the experience we had. And I think I have 3 boys now, and I think they have the same experience that I was getting. And so that's exciting for us. We're glad to be here. But to know the community supports the new schools, there's some tough questions coming up. The community is engaged with this process, with everything going on with the school. I'm shocked sometimes what people bring to me. I don't go out asking everyone's opinion, but people come to me and ask questions or are giving opinions to this topic or any other topic, and it just shows how much education is valued in Portage. And it's really exciting to be a part of that process. And yeah, we have all of these other extracurricular things with the schools and the sports and the theater and the bands and all of that, but see the growth of those kids from all of that is exciting too. And the teachers here are just absolutely wonderful. So we're thrilled to be a part of this community, and I just think it's a strong one.
Absolutely.
In case you did not pick it up in your research, the board is very focused on continuous improvement and high expectations for the district. So you should go away with that. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I had that. That's a really important thing to me as well. Like I said, I facilitate strategic planning for other districts in my region. That's something that, and I do that because I believe. There's lots of ways to do it. I'm not so much like it has to be done in this particular way, but engaging in that work and being intentional is so important. That's continuous improvement. We can always get better. I definitely got the impression of, Portage is reputed to be certainly the best in the area, and that's great, and it's not the only goal. Like I looked at comparison data, and you're comparing yourselves not just with KPS and Comstock and Galesburg Augusta, you're comparing yourself with Grand Blanc and Zeeland and Traverse City, where I have some experience, and places that are similar sized, and looking beyond that to just being the best district for every student that we serve, which is just amazing. So appreciate that.
And I would just add, and building on that, and things are really good here. And so, I mean, one reason that we, through our policy, we force comparison to these other districts is when you do that, it's a little more humbling.
Yeah.
Right? And you compare yourselves to some of these other districts that's kind of an apples to apples, and we're maybe not at the top, we're maybe more toward the middle.
Right.
And so it's humbling, but it says that we have another step or two in us. And I think, you know, the next superintendent is, you know, would embrace that and try to figure that out. And I would just say that as a board, I mean, we've talked about we have to be realistic and patient. These are institutions.
Yes.
They don't change on a dime, but we need to advocate for, you know, that higher performance and support our superintendent.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Bo, and you're spot on. We can always be better. That doesn't mean we're broken, right? It just means there's districts that need turnaround. Like they're out there. But you know, there's districts that every district can always use course correction. We always can use a little tip of the rudder one way or the other, just keep us getting it into a good direction. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
Matt, would you like to offer a closing statement?
Certainly. I appreciate it. And again, thank you. Thanks, board, and thank you, everyone here again. I appreciate everyone's time, and it really is an honor for me to be here. And I don't say that lightly. I know that this is a big job, it's an important job, and it's a critical decision. I've done a lot of reflecting and thinking about this role, and I know that these interview processes are really about fit, you know, and I know you're looking to see what kind of a fit I might be, and it goes both directions. I need to see what kind of a fit this would be for me, and you know, I hope that as you reflect on this, that the fit is good on your end. I want you to know, after a lot of time and space, that I feel the fit is really good on my end. It feels really strong. I was excited to be here, and I still am excited to be here. Got a little keyed up, as you can imagine. These are exciting times. What I hope to offer you all is a blend. You know, I've been doing this work, as I said, for 25 years, and I've been in district levels now for almost a decade, and so I believe I do bring some great experience and expertise to the table. And as I said before, with humility, it's not just about me bringing expertise, it's about being a listener and a learner. Like I said, it's being a student of leadership is, I think, really important, and being willing and able to listen carefully to those around me, the team, the leadership team, the staff, the community, it all matters. And, you know, being clear about that and leading in a situational manner, to go back to the very beginning of this conversation, is something that I really would plan to bring to the table. And so it's a big decision, it's exciting for me, and I really thank you for this opportunity, and really look forward and hope to see you further in the process.
Thank you, Matt. We certainly appreciate your interest in the position. We appreciate you taking the time to come down and visit with us tonight. We have 2 more interviews tomorrow, as you know.
Yes.
And after that, we will be in touch. We thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone has filled out these forms from Michigan Leadership Institute, Andy Engel will collect those. And I believe with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.